when we hear Candace Owen putting something like this out, we have an obligation to respond in a professional way. So let's start with the tweet that went out a short while ago. Candace Owen puts, urgent, 2 days ago, I was contacted by a high-ranking employee of the French government after determining this person's position and proximity to the French couple. I have deemed the information they gave me to be credible enough to share publicly in the event that something happens. In short, this person claims that the Macrons have executed upon and paid for my assassination. Yes, you read that correctly. More specifically, that the green light was given to a small team in National Marie Intervention Group. I am told there is one Israeli that is on this assassination squad, and the plans were formalized. Again, this person provided concrete proof and that they were well placed within the French government apparatus. Further, at this point, this person claims that Charlie Kirk's assassin trained with the French Legion 13th Brigade with multi-state involvement. Journalist Javier Passard's life is also at risk, and he's also tweeted this out. This is deadly serious. The head of the state of France apparently wants us both dead and has authorized professional units to carry this out. I ask that every person retweet and share this. I do not know who in the American government can be trusted since this source claims our leaders are aware. But I have more specific information, which is definitely verifiable, should they care to reach out to me. Obviously, this is a bold claim that goes without saying. The one thing, and I'll get your response on this in a moment here, Jay. I just will say off the bat, the way I look at this as this rolled out, like everyone else, we process it. We go, wow, this is a huge accusation. We're giving her the I'm saying here, representing the show Homeless Love, we're giving her the benefit of the doubt to pursue this matter. She's ready to, she's going publicly with it. She apparently has more evidence to share on this, and we'll leave the door open. What I don't like, Jay, is I don't like the knee-jerk reaction by a lot of people in this space that almost instantaneously say this is BS. Almost instantaneously start talking about Candace's mental wellness and mental health. Almost instantaneously suggesting there is this anti-Semitic undertone and this ego that's attached to I have to keep having people on me and keep relevant. So I've seen all of that. I'm not going to go through all the smears right now, but I'll let you know that aside from there are people validating this right now. There are people. In fact, I'll just put one up because this one is important. This is a total validation by the owner of Telegram, Pavel Durov. He's putting this out. And again, this is the kind of verbiage I appreciate. This is what we're saying. We're basically saying what he's saying. The owner of Telegram, Pavel, just linked France and Macron to the killing of Charlie Kirk. So he says, after going through everything Charlie Kirk ever said about France and Macron, I actually think Candace's claim about France being involved in his death is entirely possible, which means, as I just said earlier, we keep the door open on this and we don't knee-jerk reaction and cut it off. So that's a bold claim coming from the owner of Telegram as far as backing her up on this. Jay, what are your thoughts? All the different conversations happening, all the pushback from this. Where are you at with everything here?
Well, to start out, I do have to say, I think we should take it seriously. I'm going to explain why in just a moment. But before we do that, I commend Candace for speaking out about Zionism and all the influence it has in our government. But, I would urge people to recognize that her father-in-law is actually part of a committee, that ties the Catholic Church to Israel. I forget the actual name of it, but if you look up who her father-in-law is, he does have direct ties to Israel. So now the truth is, I can definitely understand why France is being implicated, because if you look at the history of a lot of these secret societies, they do actually tie back to the Knights Templar, and the Knights Templar originated in southern France. So Freemasons, the Skull and Bones, like all them actually tie back directly to the Knights Templar. And yes, they were dissolved back in the early 1300s, but the leader of it today is coming out and said, well, we never went away, we just went underground. So, and they do claim they do claim to play a large role in a lot of significant events over world history, including the founding of America, the Knights Templar. So I can understand why she's saying that. Now, in terms of the history there and why you should take the threat seriously, there's a group called Le Cercle. That's LE CERCLE, right? And they have been tied to some very high profile assassination attempts, including the president of France. And the group is made up of intelligence agents, the intelligence agencies representative of France, the UK, America, and I believe Germany. And it was created after the World War to be, quote unquote, a group that ensures that those powers are all on the same page moving forward. I think there's one or two other countries involved in it too. But long story short, it's supposed to be based, in France. And, they were accused of assassinating Charles de Gaulle because he was essentially allowing Algeria to gain its independence, which was one of the most important French colonies at the time. So there is a long history of high profile assassinations being tied to intelligence agencies that may or may not be based in France. So aside from all the stuff that Candace is presenting now, there is actually a long history of assassinations being tied back to intelligence agencies, with France being one of the top ones over there. And let's not forget, we back up France in all of their expeditions in Africa. Like France was one of the ones who had that big problem with Libya too. And, they supported us when we went in to go overthrow them. What's happening in the AES right now, the two people who are losing the most are France and America. So we partner with them directly on a lot of their foreign, expeditions. And there's even a quote from the former president of France saying, if France loses control over all of its, quote unquote, former colonies, then there's a chance that France slips into the status of a third world country. So a lot of people in France openly admit that they are dependent, on these things. So they're dependent on the machine. If the machine, was to fail, then France would be hurt more than America, to be honest with you, because we are somewhat self-sufficient over here. If America stopped trading with the rest of the world, we would figure it out. France is in a little bit of a tougher position. So they are fully dependent on the establishment.
Yeah, so we are certainly taking this claim seriously, as we're taking all of Candace's work on the Charlie Kirk investigation seriously. And it's unfortunate, again, how many people are so quick to dismiss it as if they're reverse engineering a conclusion that this is a straight up everything's on the up and up, and Candace is having mental illness episode, and she's ego driven and wants to stay relevant. This is a reverse engineering tactic. It's not journalism, and anybody putting that out there right away, instantaneously, is not to be trusted. If you, however, on the other hand, do some research, look into it, show us where she might have something off or wrong, then we can have a discussion about an alternative viewpoint on this. But I gotta tell people that we gotta look out for the differences of the two types of reporting. We saw this firsthand when Charlie Kirk was first murdered. We saw the people storm Twitter immediately saying anyone who's talking about Israel is anti-Semitic. Anyone who's talking about Israel is looking for clicks. Anyone who's talking about Israel has bad intention. You're like, well, that's not how journalism works. If somebody makes a claim, you look at it. We didn't know anything about Charlie Kirk really that much at all until he was murdered. And then guess what we did, Jay? We looked into it. We saw the bold claims. We saw the Ian Carrolls. We saw Max Blumenthal. We saw a whole range of people
and
saying
we
there
saw
are
the change
timestamps.
in his opinion towards the end of his life,
Yeah,
which made it a huge coincidence. So you're telling
exactly.
me he was alive all this time, nothing happened to him, and then he started criticizing Israel, and right after that he died? I mean, that's a big coincidence. So
People were reverse engineering the conclusion they wanted and working it backwards. And the conclusion they wanted with Charlie Kirk's murder was that the extreme stuff he did caught up with him, unfortunately, and that
mhm.
sucks. That was their conclusion.
Yeah,
And
and
and by validating the Israel part of it, you're in their minds, what you're doing is you're alleviating the severity of extreme views that you disagreed with, and you're giving it
mhm.
credence because now he becomes somebody that was for good. And then you're also saying about the human experience that it's okay to be a quote unquote bad person and then at the last second change your mind and then be a hero. That is a emotional response. That's not real. That's emotional. Our job as journalists is to do the work and look for the timestamps and look at how things shifted when people change their opinions and not be so judgmental on things they did before that or whatever. Look at the thing itself and be
Yeah.
actual detectives on the case. That's
And,
what Candace is doing. I
and
believe that.
exactly. And
That's
really quick,
yeah,
if people want to do some more research and understand, well, why would Israel be working with France? Well, if you look at France's former colonies in the Middle East, that's actually Lebanon and Syria, right? So those are the countries that France had all these economic ties with and they profited off. And, Israel has helped keep both of those countries, quote unquote, in line, once they gained their independence from France. So, that's why, and I could be wrong on this. I actually don't know who's at the top of the hierarchy. It could be the Zionists, it could be other secret societies, but you can easily make the argument that Israel is essentially a proxy for the establishment. And that's what I lean towards, but I
yeah.
also accept that I could be wrong on that. And maybe it is the Zionists on top. But either way, it's a lot more than only Zionists. And in my opinion, I think Candace focuses way too much on that one aspect. And someone who's getting paid to do this, who has as much time as she has, I would like to see her talk about some of these secret societies a bit more, especially because she's Catholic, especially because of who her father-in-law is. Like, she should be diving into that history to figure out what else is going on. So I'm not saying I 100% believe it, but what I do know is the claims are worth taking seriously. And I do hope that she releases as much information as possible, because what this also does is it could strike fear in the hearts of other people who were thinking about speaking out. Because does that now mean anybody who speaks out is at risk of being assassinated by either
It's
France or Israel? So there could be a bunch of things going on, but there's definitely enough evidence to take it seriously, in my opinion. And I do hope, if the US government isn't taking it seriously, that she releases it, to the world so we can take a look at it. Because again, just don't take my word for it. Go Google Les Circle. Like, French intelligence agencies tried to assassinate their own president who was doing something that was against their interests. So why wouldn't they try to assassinate someone over here, especially if they're tied in with our intelligence agencies?
yeah, yeah, all credible. Looking at all that, absolutely, Jay. Now, one more note on the mental health aspect. We covered earlier in the show Marjorie Taylor Greene bowing out of Congress, saying I'm basically at my wit's end here. The death threats. One could interpret about her that she might have just had that breaking point, because how can our mental health be okay when we are attacked and called these horrible things? Maybe Candace has got a little more tougher skin than Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't mean to pit them against each other, but I want people to understand that even though there are bad actors saying Candace has lost her mind, understand that this has got to be effing hard for her. I'm going to play this 1 minute that she posted yesterday. And if you are one of those people out there that are looking for that validation of, oh, she looks crazy, I'm asking you right now, before you watch this 1 minute she put out, to change your mindset about how we look at mental health and look at this from a point of view of what would you do in this situation if this was you and this type of evidence came to your right in front of your eyesight, and that you looked through it for 2 days and you determined it was real, and you put it out publicly, knowing the backlash you would get for putting this out there, what type of state would you be in when 2 days later you checked in with your people and had this to say on camera and uploaded it to your account? Check it out.
Do you think it's normal, by the way, that basically every person who speaks about Israel has to basically say a statement that's like, I don't want to get killed? like literally, because speaking about it, people are like, Candace, beef up your security. That's not fucking normal. Like, excuse my language, but like, that is not normal. Okay, it's not normal that people have to think about their security, because, and by the way, so normal that then the way that you get comfortable with it is you're like, well, they shot JFK in an open car, so there's not, he's a sitting president. Obviously my security doesn't really matter. If they want me, they're going to get me. That's not a normal thought process to have. We don't have that about any other country in the world, except for the one that, took over ours. And that's the truth. Okay. We are an occupied nation. And if it's going to take women like having to speak up and say that to make permission, like to give permission to men to do the same, then I'm happy to be the first person. Okay. I just want to be clear. Anything happens to me, blame the Zionists. Like 1000% blame the Zionists. Like let that be my parting word.
Let that be my parting words. So this is intense shit, man. I'm telling you, like, there are people that watch this video and go, you see, she's got a mental health. She's not all there. No, change your mindset. Understand, what would you do in this situation? How okay would you be? So the least we could do is give her the respect of hearing her out and seeing what evidence she has, rather than writing it off right away, because it changes our world view. It changes our construct of how our country functions, and we don't want to deal with that. So we're going to blame her and write it off. Let's stop doing that. Let's give it some attention and just an honest take.
Yeah, and don't forget, she was a personal friend of Charlie Kirk. It's not like, he was some, TV figure to her. To her, that was an actual friend who she's known for a long time, and they had enough of a relationship where clearly she was texting him, before he actually died, and he was sharing some of his, thoughts about the issue that was he thought that his life could be in danger from what we saw, right? And he was sharing that with Candace, and then she saw him die. So, and those texts have been verified. We know she didn't Photoshop it. We know those texts are real. So clearly you can understand why, she would be worried in this situation. So, the only thing I can say is, if I am right about the secret society aspect of it, they're using the Zionists as a proxy. So clearly the Zionists are going to have a hand like in what's going on. So regardless, they do need to be addressed. So my point is, I just want everyone to remember there are other people involved. It's not just Zionists, but we do need to take it seriously. And we do need to ask ourselves, well, why is it Hebrew is the one language that gets censored on Twitter? Why isn't Arabic censored? Because there's a lot of people in the Middle East who don't like Israel and who don't like what America has done, like in the region, right? And I'm sure you could find lots of examples about people saying bad things about, America and Israel in Arabic, but they let that fly. So why is it that Hebrew is the only language that will not get translated? So, we have to look at what's happening in the world right now. We have to be honest. Like, Israel is tied into most of the stuff that we're doing, and they're tied into a lot of the stuff that the establishment, is doing at this point in time. And it's a double-edged sword, because when people focus it on Jews instead of Israelis, they actually create a little bit more of that demand. And thankfully, most people don't. However, there is a growing number of people who are just saying Jews, who are just blaming it on Jews. And it's directly because Israel keeps saying, if you hate us, you got to hate the Jews. Like, they're equating themselves with Judaism. So if you fall into that trap, you're actually helping the Zionists. Never forget that there wasn't that many people going to Israel before the Holocaust. Before Jews felt threatened, they weren't going to Israel. So talk about the Israeli government, talk about, you can critique religion all you want. You can critique a government policies all you want, and you can talk about the sentiment in the country. Just be careful in how you describe it, and don't just start talking about quote unquote Jews, which most people don't do. But there is that growing sentiment. So we do have to be honest about that too.